Welcome back to Freedom Through Fitness, the podcast that's here to shift the way you think about movement. Around here, we believe fitness isn't about punishment. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about what feeling fit lets you do, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and even socially. From running around with your kids without gasping for breath, to feeling confident enough to step into any room and back yourself, to rebuilding trust in your body after years of frustration or injury. This is your place to explore what it really means to reclaim your strength, your confidence, and your freedom through fitness. I'm your host, Meg Batchelor, founder of Focused Personal Training, a Southampton-based coaching business helping real people create lasting change. You'll hear stories, strategies, and conversations with people who've done just that, and how you can too. If something here sparks an idea, gives you clarity, or makes you curious, we'd love to hear it. Visit us at freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk, share what's resonated, or ask for support if you're ready to take action. In this episode, we explore what it truly means to rebuild from the ground up, both physically and mentally. On the Freedom Through Fitness podcast, we speak to experts, local inspirational individuals, and athletes who embody what it means to live with purpose. And today's guest, Dave Henson MBE, is all three. Dave is a former Royal Engineer officer, Paralympic medalist, biomechanics researcher, and Southampton local whose story is nothing short of extraordinary. After stepping on an IED while serving in Afghanistan, Dave lost both his legs and faced a life-altering journey of recovery. But through sheer resilience, an unwavering commitment to movement, and a relentless drive to serve a bigger purpose, he not only learned to walk again, he sprinted his way to a bronze medal at the Rio 2016 Paralympic Games. We unpack the physical, mental, and emotional journey of adapting to a new body, finding identity beyond adversity, and how fitness, at every stage, has been the anchor that allowed him to move forward. This is a conversation about grit, growth, and how true freedom isn't found in the absence of challenge, but in our ability to rise above it. I can't wait to share this conversation with you, so let's get to it.
Like, I'm covered in bandages and ID drips and stuff at this point anyway, but the military absolutely recognised the value of movement, both from a mental perspective and from a healing perspective. The sooner they could get you into movement, understanding movement, the better the prognosis is going to be for you as an individual.
Today, I'd like to welcome Dave Henson to the Freedom Through Fitness podcast. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'd love for you to share where it all began for you in terms of your experience with fitness and staying well and your physical ability.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a local lad. I grew up here in Southampton, born in Southampton, grew up in Bitton Park, went to school in Southampton. Didn't really leave the town for any great stretch until I went to university. But one thing which I did find when I was living down here was a love and aspiration for the military. So if you remember those visits that you get during secondary school, and loads of different local companies, organisations will come out to your school and sort of sell their wares and say, come join our organisation, and you have to do your checkbox exercise that says, what career are you suited for? I went up and spent a day with the military, where I'm sure they showed us all of the glorious side of the military and none of the bad stuff. So I think this is going to be the career for me. In terms of fitness as a young person, I was actually quite terrible. I wasn't good enough at football to be on the football team. I wasn't the last pick. I wasn't good enough. The same with rugby. I had a passion for basketball, but basketball's not so popular in this country. So I think I benefited from just not as many people playing of it. But I did swim. I swam an awful lot when I was younger. I swam for handball swimming club. Ended up doing some county level competitions and that kind of thing. So I was relatively fit. But I was also one of those kids that kind of went a little bit wayward, as it were, smoking here and there, drinking far too much. And really it wasn't until university where I properly got into fitness in a meaningful way. And that was around the time that I actually put my applications in for the army, to go through the regular commissions board, as it was called at the time, and managed to get selected for a place at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. So the sort of military career and the uptake in a serious way of fitness came hand in hand, and that continued all the way through the early sides of my military career. So I did 1 year in the military as part of my degree. So my third year was spent full-time employed by the military in the army. Came back to university, finished my final year, and then went back to the army for a full-time proper career. And all through that period, focusing primarily on running and training with weight, so loaded marches or just running with weight, and your sort of body-based fitness, so your pull-ups and push-ups, which are a bit of a military cliche, I suppose. So that was kind of my approach to fitness, and that carried me all the way through my military career, as it were. And in terms of fitness after that, I found myself at my fittest point when I was in Afghanistan in 2010, 2011. So this was my first operational tour out there. Now in Afghanistan, I was on foot most of the time. I was one of the units that were based out of vehicles. So you're carrying anything up to about 60, 65 kilos worth of kit with you all the time. And Afghanistan has quite high altitude as well. So you're benefiting from that from a cardiovascular perspective. So you're carrying all this kit, working at high altitudes. I remember coming back on Christmas leave. I happened to have leave at Christmas. You don't actually get Christmas leave on an operational tour. I came back over Christmas, and I went out for a run, and I was, Jesus Christ, how on earth have I managed to improve my time? But I hadn't been running around Afghanistan, I've been still working out there, but my fitness had improved massively. So I sort of went back to Afghanistan with, right, let's use this time as well. Anytime you've got downtime, let's work on the fitness. So you've got homemade gyms. I've got pictures of me with ammunition tins and a 10 pole, I think it was, which we used as a piece of gym equipment in one of the sort of more austere bases that we were operating out of. And then unfortunately, I stepped on a bomb. So it was quite strange. I've been chatting to my brother, who's really into his fitness, Meg, as you well know, about barefoot running and, you know, how beneficial it can be, and how there's certain areas of the world where people just run barefoot, and there's a real benefit to it. I've been reading this book, and so 2 weeks later, I'm still on a bomb and I don't have any feet left anyway. So it's like, well, all of that reading, I could just go straight in the bin. Absolutely no point in reading that whatsoever. The post-explosion, I was then faced with, now what?
Yeah. A whole new body.
A whole new body. So I was blown up on February the 13th in 2011. Which ended up in both of my legs getting amputated. So my right leg was amputated just above the knee. My left leg was amputated through the knee. So from a biomechanical perspective, no functional knee joints, no ankle joints. So all of these control and power producing joints, which you need for movement, just gone. I was awake in the field hospital in Afghanistan, in the hospital in Camp Bastion, and sort of waking up and looking down at this destroyed body and going, what on earth am I supposed to do with this? I've flown back to the UK. I had about a week in intensive care, and then I got put onto, I guess you'd call it a rehabilitation ward, just a normal ward, non-intensive care ward. There's, you know, maybe 12 rooms on this ward packed full of soldiers. This is at the height of our military operations in Afghanistan. So people are getting smashed left, right, and Chelsea. And the outlook at that point was fairly bleak. You don't really know what you're going to do, how are you going to get on with things. And then a physiotherapist comes in and says, like, we're going down the gym now. We're going down to the gym now. And they had, maybe the next door down, I don't know, a whole gym set up where you start practicing just basic body movements, like how to transfer yourself using your own body power from a wheelchair onto a bed, which, you know, is a very minor movement. But when you're used to using your legs for everything, you have to start balancing on your arms,
and your center of gravity must be completely
everything is completely off. But you start doing these movements, and then you start doing some core exercises. And like, I'm covered in bandages and IV drips and stuff at this point anyway. But the point is, the military absolutely recognize the value of movement, both from a mental perspective and from a healing perspective. So the sooner, from their perspective, the sooner they could get you into movement, understanding movement, the better the prognosis is going to be for you as an individual, which, 14 and a half years down the line, I can hold my hand up and say, actually, that's absolutely the right approach, the right way to do it. The quicker you get moving, the better it's going to be.
Is day-to-day life starting to feel harder than it should? Do you find yourself out of breath chasing your kids or even grandkids? If you feel like every day has a new ache and pain that didn't used to be there, or you're just feeling like your strength and your confidence isn't what it was, you can turn this around. Help is out there, and you wouldn't believe the difference it can make. At Focused Personal Training, we help people rebuild strength and resilience from the inside out, no matter where they're starting from. It's not about smashing yourself in the gym, it's about reclaiming the energy, mobility, and self-belief to live the life you want. If you're ready to take the first step, reach out to us at freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk. Your freedom starts with that first conversation.
And we moved on from there to basic exercises on my hand bike and little bits of cardiovascular fitness, introduced us to the rowing machine, which is a bit strange when using a fixed seat rather than a moving seat. But they start to show you that your body is not useless. It is a little bit broken, a little bit damaged, to put it lightly. But there are opportunities and avenues for you to progress forward. So that's your sort of hospital period as you're moving on. Incidentally, around about that time, my brother, he worked as a personal trainer at David Lloyd at the time. He had come up to the hospital and visited me quite a lot. He'd gone to see my army unit and speak with one of our physical training instructors to get some advice and guidance as to how he could help and what kind of contribution he could make to my recovery. So I left hospital about 5 weeks post-injury, and I went home for a period of sort of recuperation leave at home. And Tom starts, right, we're going to the gym. And
in the garage.
Yeah, we just went straight to David Lloyd at that point. So there's me still quite bandaged up, and he's got me in the gym, and I think we were on the bench press and just doing some basic movements. We got on the hand bike again, and he's showing me all these different things that we can do to try and put some strength back into my body, build the muscle mass back up. Then I moved to rehabilitation. So that's your inpatient military rehabilitation system, which is almost exclusively based around peer-based exercise and sport, and that is what you do. So from 8:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you are working. You might do 1-2 hours of walking specific training when you get your prosthetics, but the rest of that time period is all focused on fitness, on health and fitness, and they do that through organized group classes or sport. And from there, I was in rehab as an inpatient for 3 years, and you get quite fit in that environment. And that pushed me onto a love of sport, ultimately came to a love of running. I managed to get fitted with the prosthetic blades for running. I got back into running, which was brilliant. I don't have the feet, so barefoot book is still irrelevant and it's gone in the bin, but I got back into running, which was a real pleasure. So it takes us on to the next chapter, perhaps.
You then not just rediscovered your fitness, but you took it to the next level and you began to compete and represent for your country. So can you tell us about your experience as an athlete there?
So I knew with these injuries I was leaving the military, and I was determined to leave with at least a similar level of fitness as I came in. One of the components of the Army's fitness test is a 1.5 mile run, and you have to complete that run in 10.5 minutes. So I was like, right, that's going to be my target. That's something I understand. I'm going to pass this fitness test, and then you can sign me off and tear up my service sheet, and away we go. I'll be out, and I'm kind of confidently in a good place then. So I put a load of work into my running, and I passed that test, and then I was discharged from the military. And it happened to coincide with the time where Prince Harry and his team had elected to organise the very first Invictus Games. In fact, it was the only Invictus Games at that point, because we didn't know whether it was going to be a success or not. I ended up being asked if I wanted to be the captain of the British team for the very first Invictus Games. I know from being involved that this is going to be on primetime BBC. There's documentaries getting made, and I can't go out onto the sports field not having given everything to give the best performance at that particular competition that I can. So I went out and I started training, and the Invictus Games came around, and the training paid off. I did well. I won the competition, the 200-meter sprint, came away with the gold medal, and actually what was a really decent time as far as my disability in that particular competition is concerned. Now, because it was featured so heavily on the BBC, Tanya Gray Thompson, very famous Paralympic athlete, was doing some of the commentary, and she was like, Dave has absolutely got to go to the Paralympics. And I think she said this on the One Show or something. So obviously I'm then like, right, well, I'm going to have to go and do something about this now. And British Athletics got in touch, and they were like, you can go onto a program, do you want to push through? And I thought, this is probably a good idea. So I started going for it. I got myself a sprint coach in the form of a Swiss photographer called Roger, who used to sprint for Switzerland, but has never been a sprint coach. But I'd worked with him before, both on the photography side and on the athletics side over at Invictus Games. And I was like, I like working with this person. He knows how to get good things out of me. And I spoke to my brother, who at that point had moved on to become a strength and conditioning coach at Southampton Football Academy. So we developed a training plan. We broke that down into manageable chunks. It's just a very normal planning process. And away we went. And I got good. I managed to qualify for the World Championships in 2015, which I absolutely stuffed. I did not perform well at that particular competition. But we used it as a learning point. I didn't beat myself up. We adjusted the training plan. We focused on other bits I need to focus on. So that's stability around the bend and the start. We we took that into the 2015-2016 season, went across to Florida, did a training camp in Florida, competed at the Invictus Games in Orlando in 2016, where I absolutely smashed the competition there. So I'd taken 4 seconds of my time in a year and a half. Then flew across to Phoenix to do, a Paralympic event over there. So an International Paralympic Committee recognized event in Phoenix. So that gives me the qualification paperwork. Smashed that event as well. And that was it. My qualification times are in. I qualified for European Championships that year. I came away with a silver medal, got my plane ticket for Rio, went out to Rio, represented my country at the Rio 2016 Paralympics, and came away with a bronze medal, all from being a stubborn guy who didn't want to leave the military as unfit. And we worked our way through it.
What an adventure to have gone on in terms of your experience and your life experience. And how did it feel to be, walking out to the starting blocks at the Paralympic Games?
So completely surreal. That's the short answer to the question. Hugely privileged to have the opportunity to go and do those competitions, and we did. We went all over Europe, and it was just one child that we had at the time. So my wife and my young daughter would come along to all these competitions as well, because it's super easy when there's just one kid to be able to bounce around like that. So we go to all these places and really had a brilliant time. But it's so completely surreal. I remember when the Paralympics finished and we'd flown back to the UK, I was then back in the lab maybe 2 or 3 days later. So I'm in a basement lab in London with no natural light, sort of falling asleep at my computer. That so often happens when you're working through really quite boring stuff. I was like, what on earth is going on here? 2 days ago, I think, Rio celebrating the Paralympics, and I'm back in this lab. This is bizarre.
After you'd been at that high with your competing at the highest standard there possibly could be, really, how did you then move into this new chapter of your life? So I know that you've gone on to have 3 children with your wife. You've perhaps completed that PhD. Tell us a little bit about what the PhD was in and how that's completely changed your career.
So the PhD is in, I generally describe it as amputee biomechanics. So it is a computational biomechanical study of how amputees and their biological bodies interact with the artificial bits that we plug on the other side. So we were using MRI scans, which I had to reconstruct by hand, all of the muscles, all of the bones in the amputee's lower body, paired with some motion analysis, some motion capture work from my laboratory, fed into mathematical models that say, actually based on this kind of optimization framework, this muscle is firing here, and here. It's using this much energy and it's putting this much load into the body. That allowed us to make some conclusions about risk of osteoarthritis in amputees, whether or not it's going to be the prosthetic or the rehabilitation system protocol is going to make the most difference to the amputee as they move on with their lives. And create a whole database of information assets for other researchers to use in this field of amputee research. So that was the basis of my PhD. I ended up finishing that in February 2020, which therefore meant that I had to do my viva on Zoom. I had to defend my thesis on Zoom in the midst of the early days of the COVID pandemic. It took 4.5 hours on this Zoom call, which was pretty grueling, but then passed the PhD.
Think you're too old to start something new, too busy, or maybe just too intimidated to even walk into a gym? You're not alone, and you're not wrong for feeling that way. But the truth is, you can build strength and confidence without flipping your life upside down, even if you've never been a gym person. At Focused Personal Training, we'll meet you where you're at. Real life solutions, real people, personalised support, and no egos. Let's start a conversation about what's actually possible for you. Head to freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk and let us know what's holding you back. We're here to guide you to the solution and a sense of freedom through your own fitness.
That work led me into prosthetic development. So I then worked at Imperial College for about 1.5 years on low-cost, high-functionality prosthetics, which are specifically designed or intended for resource-poor environments. So resource-poor environments might be areas of humanitarian crisis. So maybe there's been earthquakes or floods or whatever that's led to an increased number of amputations. It could be conflict or post-conflict. So places like Ukraine or Gaza, or post-conflict scenarios like Cambodia, where a lot of explosive remnants of war still littering about. But I also got to a point in my life about mid-21s. This is 10 years post-injury, where all of the last 10 years have been focused on either my own journey through disability, my experiences of conquering that disability with sport and getting on that Paralympic stage, or helping other people with their disabilities, whether that's through the work that I continue to do with the Invictus Games Foundation, or some of the other military charities that I'm a trustee of, or through the research. So the whole of that 10-year point had been dominated by my own disability, and I need to break from it. So I took 4 years out, and I went and worked back in the defence industry. Nothing to do with my disability, nothing really to do with my degree, other than my degree was engineering related, which really allowed me to find a confidence in my own abilities and know that that ability is not linked to the fact that I am a person with this kind of condition, which was super important. And it's now taken me to this point in my life where actually I'm comfortable. I've just started another company, so a consultancy firm that works with defense and works with medical device innovation, which perhaps are two distinct areas, but there's a lot of crossover, certainly in terms of your regulatory framework and that kind of stuff, and be an ambassador for some of the work that I continue to do in that humanitarian space. So that's kind of the next chapter, and we'll just have to see how these things go. But again, it's based on, I need to get myself out of my comfort zone. I know it's going to be hard work. I know it's going to be painful, but let's go through it like you've done with everything else, and it's going to be fine.
You had your identity as a military man, and you knew that that identity was coming to a close because you knew you couldn't continue in active service. You had your identity as the guy who's getting over losing his legs. You had your identity as an athlete. I kind of want to lean into the dad side a little bit. How do you think being an amputee dad has affected your children in any way? Have you seen anything from your children that you think, actually, that's brilliant because this has built a sense of resilience in them, or anything like that?
It's a great question that I don't quite know I've got the answer to. Now, I don't know if it's because my kids are still young. My oldest is 10, 7 and 4. So I don't know if it's because they're still young, and I don't know if it's because where this happened before they were born, this is all that they've seen. So they've only ever seen me with the prosthetics. So for them, it's completely normal, and I'm not quite sure whether their overall exposure to life in general is sufficient enough to know that actually this is quite abnormal, because they kind of just had that little primary school bubble still, and they are still sheltered and this kind of stuff. But I do notice them helping and identifying where they can help. So that's outside of the home, helping other people. So they'll notice someone that's struggling. They have a confidence to go and ask people about their own disability if they see someone else with a disability, which I think is super important. And they certainly accommodate the issues that I still have on a day-to-day basis. I still have very much mobility challenges. I still struggle to get upstairs and all this kind of stuff. There's some things about losing legs that you just can't get over. It just is what it is. But whether or not it's increased their resilience as individuals, I'm not sure. I think that bit's perhaps yet to play out. But I certainly see that they know that hardship exists. They ask me all these questions: why has this happened? Why has this happened? Does it hurt? Is it painful? What makes it more painful? Which I think perhaps indicates that there's a good framework there. But I think it's probably secondary school where we'll start to see whether that resilience has been achieved or not. But I hope so. Because I don't really want them to see life as being easy. Perhaps as a parent, I should be doing everything I can to make life easy for them. But I don't think that's a realistic representation of life. So I want them to see that it's hard and there are hardships, but you can work through it.
So you've got work and you've got family life. What would you say is your mission now with your work? What makes it worth getting up in the morning and putting the effort and energy you are putting into your work?
Oh, that is a very deep question, I think. What is worth it? I look at my kids, and I do want to, I don't want to shelter them, but I do want to be able to provide as much for them as I possibly can. So, that talks to the financial motivation that anyone has to go. I want to go and drag in as much cash as I can to support these kids through as much as I possibly can. But I don't want to do that in a way that's not meaningful for me. I'm very proud to have served in the military. Just because I'm not in the military anymore doesn't mean that I can't still serve my country. And I think working in certain areas of the defence industry really do allow you to provide for your country in a way that is different from being a member of our uniformed services. And I've seen that difference along the many years that I've been in the defence industry. So in terms of mission, I don't really know that I could define it. And I have asked myself that question a lot. And I don't really know that I have a personal mission. I really struggled with that question. But at least I've got these values based around selfless commitment, about honour and respect, about humour. Life's got to be fun, a bit of humility in there. And the things that I stand for and the ways that I can recognise I can make a difference. And as long as I'm pushing in that kind of direction, then I'm probably going in the right way.
So a question that I really like to ask everybody who guests on the podcast is to return back to the title of the podcast, which is Freedom Through Fitness. And everybody's version of that is different. And you almost have multiple versions that you've shared with us already. But if we were to summarize that question as a whole, what would the phrase freedom through fitness mean to you?
For me, actually, I think, so yes, there's many different points in my life where fitness has meant something different. But it all, you take it back to that baseline, and it's the freedom to go about my life. Now what that life is described as has changed from chapter to chapter of my life. And when I was an athlete, I needed to be super fit. When I was in the military, I needed to be fit so I could stay alive. That's the whole concept. Now it's just about having a life with my kids. I still do that gym session or do that run every day. And that is so that I can go and spend the time with the kids. I can push them on the swing. I can go for walks with them, and they are as minimally impacted by my disability as I can possibly make it. And I will continue doing that for as long as possible so that I can actually interact and engage them in the most meaningful way.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. And I know that there's going to be a lot of really powerful insights from your story. And I really appreciate you being so open about every stage that you've gone through. So thank you so much, Dave.
Pleasure.
I hope you've enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I did recording it. If something here has made you think differently, encouraged you to take action, or reminded you of what you're capable of, I would love to know. Tell us what your golden nugget was and what it inspired you to try over at freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk. And if you're new to the podcast, be sure to scroll back through season 1. You will find powerful conversations with everyday people making extraordinary change, like CrossFit legend Kelly Friel on mastering mindset, Ellie Steele on balancing international record-breaking elite lifting with family life, and Piers Day on rebuilding mental resilience after illness and trauma. You'll be amazed at what's possible when you start prioritising your health, not just for how you look, but for the freedom it gives you. Until next time, I'm your host, Meg Batchelor, and this is Freedom Through Fitness.